of the Earth's sheet is passing and very speedily. Take an example, glaciers in Glacier National Park in Montana are below the threat of total melting by 2033. Due to climatic fluctuations since 1850, the entire number of big glaciers in this region has declined from 100 to 25. Yet this dangerous problem also has a different surface. Such natural methods lift the veil, covering unprecedented discoveries that used to maintain ice cores, and every examination produces humanity closer to resolving mysteries of both the past and the future. Number 10, 30,000 years old giant virus. Recently, explorers stepped into an astonishing finding: a giant virus at the life of more than 30,000 years, which handled to live in permanently frozen soils near the Kolyma River in Russia. According to explorers, such viruses are protected for people since they exist cynically on amoebas alone. Explorers also do not eliminate the possibility of other viruses residing in the permanently frozen clay that would live dependent not only on single-celled bodies, for example, but global warming can also shake up viruses, posing a possible risk to humans' lives. There is also an insignificant possibility that pathogenic microbes that used to infest ancient people can reproduce and infest convenient people. These disease-inducing microorganisms can be performed by conventional bacteria that can be managed using antibiotics or medicine, immune bacteria, and even deadly viruses. If they did not vanish out long ago, our immune system is not equipped to confront them. Nevertheless, it is the most generous scientifically reported virus hunting amoebas by now. Number 9, 5,000 years old Atsi mummy. In September 1991, two German travelers walked into an unusual discovering: the perfectly mummified remains of an Atsi human body frozen in an ice glacier. They believed that these remains relate to an alpinist that had recently died in the ice. Yet after the examination, the investigators determined that the mummified man was never less than 5,000 years inactive. The discovery was unprecedented in its way, since nevermore before had investigators managed to restore an intact body of the jungle elevated stage. Mummified stomach received and digested residues of his last meal, which meant that he fell unexpectedly. Later on, X-ray revealed that there was an arrowhead in the mummy's shoulder. It confirmed that 5,000 years ago, NC was killed when fighting with an enemy. Soon after his death at sea, his body was frozen in ice glacier and coated with snow, which says from predators, and since his body was lying in a deep cavity, his body material remained intact after the glacier movement. The DNA examination has confirmed that an old iceman has at least 19 existing relatives. Number 8, treasure box from Mont Blanc. One day a French alpinist quickly found a treasure through his ascent of Mont Blanc. It was a small box blowing to the surface of the glacier base, which owns the box contained little bags with a mark established in India lying in rows. Each bag contained about 100 precious jewels, stones like rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. They say that the box with expensive stones was evaluated for $377,000. Alternately of moving away with this treasure forever, the honest alpinist took it to the police. After that, it was transferred for enduring to the management of Chamonix city in the east of France, where local government officials were trying to solve the mystery of its origin. Due to a mysterious gathering of incidents, two big air crashes of Indian airplanes took place in this region of the Mont Blanc glacier. One crash took place in 1950. A Boeing 707 flying from New York via Geneva to London miscounted its flight altitude and crashed into the top of Mont Blanc mountain. All on board 117 passengers and the crew died as the effect of the crash. There formed a crater on the slope of the mountain in which aircraft wreckage and other tourists' belongings are still lying. Professionals think that the treasure box can be related to the family jewelry entrepreneur staying in London. Number 7, Ice Maiden Mummy. In 1999, at the border of Argentina and Chile, the ISIS of the UAE Jaca volcano at the height of 6,707 meters, a body of a teenage girl from the Incas was discovered. She seemed as if she had died several of weeks ago. Explorers located out that the girl aged between 13 and 15 years. The Ice Maiden was killed as a result of a blunt force head trauma 1,500 years ago during a religious ritual. Low temperature helped to preserve her body and hair collectively with the clothes and consecrated objects in perfect position. Next to her, they moved plates with food, golden and silver figures, and an amazing headwear made of white feathers of an unknown bird. Explorers also discovered bodies of two more victims of the Incas, a boy and a girl aged between 6 and 7 years. During their investigations, the explorers discovered that the children were settled for the cold for a long time. The Incas maintained them with elite products, llama meat, and corn, cocaine, and alcohol. According to the archaeologists, the Incas chose for their observances the most beautiful children. Number 6, Ancient Clothes. These clothes found at the height of 2,000 meters beyond the sea level in Landbreen Glacier seem like the melting of Landbreen Glacier in Norway. Enabled archaeologists to imagining what clothes from old age look like in 2011, from unusual handmade woolen tunic were discovered. Next 2 years of investigation, researchers discovered out that it was fabricated between 230 and 390 of our era, which indicates more than 1,500 years ago. It is quite feasible that the tunic from Landbrings belonged to a warrior. Yes, that man's height was 175 centimeters. Explorers are positive that global warming significantly expediting the process of glacier melting, especially in Norway, could expand the number of archaeological findings. Who knows what different findings are waiting for us, and subsequently in an ice shelter of glaciers alongside. Number 5, Aircraft Wreckage. Uncertainty and changeability of ice glaciers can be explained by the following story that took place in 1952 in Alaska, when an airplane with passengers on board crashed into the slope of Gannett Mountain and collapsed into pieces. Soon a research team discovered the aircraft wreckage on the peak of the Territory Glacier, but in several days the wreckage collectively with the bodies was covered with a deep layer of snow and frozen into the iceberg. Due to the most dangerous climate conditions, the investigation operation was suspended. In June 2012, a helicopter remarked aircraft wreckage projecting from a crack in the glacier, and the research was continued. Researchers discovered some pieces of the airplane and body fragments but had to suspend the research because of the constant tendency of the melting glacier. After that, in the summer of 2013, explorers discovered that from 1952 the wreckage had moved by 221 kilometers from the crash position, and some pieces were lying at the bottom of Lake George because of the glacier flow. Number 4, Frozen Mammoth Yuka. In the year 2010 in Siberia, which is the most unexplored territory of Russia, a female woolly mammoth weighing 1 ton and called Yuka was discovered. She was sleeping in lastingly frozen soils of Siberia from the last 39,000 years. However, her body has remained protected so well that you can even recognize world and muscle tissue. Moreover, for the first time, explorers guided to draw blood from an ancient animal. They put forward a suspicion that probably the mammoth got stuck in the mud and died, since the deeper part of its body was intact, thanks to the surrounding ice. Although some portions of its body completely vanished, such a finding controls great fundamental value. Explorers from South Korea disclosed that thanks to DNA samples taken from this body they have a probability to clone mammoths, therefore reviving the whole species. If it appears, researchers won't have to go to Siberia in the research of woolly mammoths anymore. Number 3, Frozen Woolly Baby, Rhinoceros. Explorers and Yakusha made a unique exploration. They discovered the remains of a woolly baby rhinoceros, beginning back to the end of the Pleistocene that began about 2 million years ago and ended about 10,000 years ago. It is the only discovered species in the world which is, according to the preliminary judgments of the Yaku paleontologists, certain baby rhinoceros have supremely preserved its soft tissues and its scalp is almost intact. This provides us the assurance that this conclusion will help us to answer various questions related to the morphology and ethnogenesis of certain creatures. Number 2, First World War soldiers. Characters still discover remains of soldiers, as well as other history facts preserved of the times of the First World War near a small Italian village of Pale, while glacier vanishing. In a battle known as the White War, soldiers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire fought against the Italian army for the command over the mountain area. According to the judgments of biographers, hundreds of thousands of soldiers died throughout the fight, and several of them did not cope with the extreme climate. By that time passes, temperatures must drop below 22 degrees and snowslides called the White Death covered total troops, and multiple soldiers struggling in that place went missing, and now practically a century ago mummified bodies buried under the melting glacier were lifted to the surface in 2004. A mountain guide observed terrifying picture bodies of 3 fighters from the Austro-Hungarian army killed in 1918, others were penetrating out of the ice wall upside underneath. These mummified frozen bodies remain found not far away from San Mateo at the height of 3,600 meters above sea level in 2013. The bodies of 2 more fighters were found in a funeral pit of the melting glacier. Since they were lying below the ice for a long time, they had preserved hair and even cutaneous muscles. The glacier also contained the soldiers' private belongings, such as a love letter written for wife Medalia. Number 1, Ancient Forest. Mendenhall Glacier in Alaska has been managing its secret for infrequent 100 years. It began to release branches, roots, and trunks of old-fashioned trees at the age of approximately 1,000 to 2,000 years. Considering these trees makes the heart soar because we can define their age. People normally observed only small samples of ancient trees in sections, but in this instance, we get the whole forest at once. Explorers hope that the iceberg will release the rest of the forest hidden from people's eyes at the very foundation under the thick ice. People face interesting existence since 2005. Mendenhall Glacier has moved backward by around 50 meters, thus empowering the whole national park of ancient forest to get to the surface in the most touching expectation. That's all. If you like this video, click the like button, please subscribe to my channel and leave your comments below, so that you get more Discoveries videos.